Okay, hello, welcome to Module 2. In Module 2, we're going to be looking at monitoring and evaluation essentials. Now, at this point, we've understood what's monitoring and evaluation. Well, we've understood why we need monitoring and evaluation, why we need to do monitoring and evaluation. And we've understood some of the basics. Now, let's look at a little bit more. Let's look at some essentials. So at this point, we're trying to ask ourselves, how do we do monitoring and evaluation? Very important, you need to understand that if you need to do monitoring and evaluation, it's about data, right? It's about what? Data, right? So you want to collect raw data. You want to transform that data. You want to make it in a form that you can have some kind of insights so that you can do what? Take decision. Right? So at this point, exploration of data collection tools, methods, data analysis techniques, design and implementation of monitoring systems underscores the importance of robust methodologies in monitoring and evaluation processes. So you cannot say you want to do monitoring and evaluation without having a way to collect data. You cannot say you're monitoring something without actually getting sufficient data to now transform that data, to now have some kind of knowledge based on that data so that you can make better decisions as business leaders, as project managers, as entrepreneurs, right? So we're going to be looking at quite a lot of this stuff subsequently. Okay, let's look at data collection tools and methods. So the point is, if you need to do monitoring and evaluation, how do you do it? How do you go about doing that? You need to conduct surveys, right? And in your surveys, you want to have some form of structured questionnaire. So what's a questionnaire? A questionnaire is typically multiple questions right? But same, administered to multiple persons, right? Multiple questions will mean you ask question 1, question 2, question 3, question 4, question 5, question 6. All of them together in a sheet, you call it a questionnaire. Now, what do? You cannot administer it to multiple persons. Now, one of the reasons why you do that is to know what the other person at the other end is thinking. You want to have that particular knowledge. And there are some principles about all of this. Now, let me talk a little bit about data, right? Let me do like a very little crash course on data analytics. Question is, what is data analytics? So you see, in the remaining part of this training, we're going to talk about data quite a lot. So data here, we're asking ourselves, we want to first define some objectives. We want to collect data. We want to transform that data or explain each of the process. We want to now do exploratory data analysis. So exploratory data analysis, I'm going to explain. Then we want to do some maybe machine learning, maybe AI. Then we want to take decisions. Then we can go back to. So this is what you call the data analysis, analytics life cycle. So this is the life cycle of any data analytics. Now, you see, you can't collect data without first defining your objectives. You must ask yourself, if I want to monitor let's say, my production line, or I want to monitor what's happening on my marketing. I want to know how many visitors do I have on my website? How many customers do I have per day? What do my website visitors need? What is the recurring request my visitors have, or people that chat me on WhatsApp for my business? What do they actually need or for my project? Depending on where you are applying marginal evaluation, you have to collect data. You first have to define your objectives. You have to ask yourself, what are you looking for? So the question here is what? You're going to also ask yourself why. In collecting data, you're going to be saying, who are you going to collect this data from? So when you define your objective, it's going to help you kind of know the kind of questions to ask, right? If you ask the right questions, you're going to get the right results. If you ask the wrong questions, if you don't ask the right questions, then you cannot start making a decision on something you didn't ask for. I just remember the very classical example of when I collected data for a particular research work and I needed to send email back to all of the respondents. Respondents are going to be everybody that filled the form. Let's say you have a table, right? So this is number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. Each person that filled this form is going to be your respondent, right? So I have something like their age brackets, like their interests, like their maybe email or whatever, because I need to send email back to them. And imagine in that questionnaire, email was not asked for. Phone number was not asked for. What it means is that you cannot even send an email back to those people. Imagine you want to know where your customers are, in what area, in what jurisdiction or what locality. We want to know where you're getting more of your clients, where people are making requests more from. Because if you know where people are making requests for more, you can now look at, okay, can I open a branch there? Can I have a sales rep there? Can I do some targeted promotional for those class of persons? But the thing now is that you didn't even ask location when you were trying to do your questionnaire, when you're trying to collect your data. So at the point where you're trying to collect data, you must define your objectives. You must ask yourself what, you must ask yourself why, you must ask yourself who. Then you make your questionnaire, you collect the questionnaire. I'm going to supply material or leave description or leave content about a standardized way to do questionnaire design. So there are a set of principles where you need to collect, do questionnaire. I'm going to drop a description of where I did that and also how you can use AI to automate some of these processes. You can use AI to automate the entire process by saying, defining my objectives, drafting the questionnaire, collecting my data, analyzing it, and all of that. You can use AI to make this very, very fast. Then you collect the data. Now, at this point of data transformation, you are asking yourself that the data that you collected, are they in their right format? If the data is not the right format, take for instance, you asked people to fill in, maybe you have a clothing line and you intend to do promotionals for men's shirts and you intend people to tell their height, right? If you want to collect data in height. Take for instance, some people are going to put their height in meters. Some people are going to put their height in centimeters. Some people are going to put their height in feet. You see, when you're analyzing this data, you need to make sure there's uniformity, right? You need to make sure that there's uniformity in the data that you are collecting. So you don't just ask people, what is your height? Because you want to know, or maybe your size of shoe or that kind of thing if you have a shoe brand. So you must indicate, and if you didn't indicate or people entered wrongly in your analysis, imagine you want to know size of shoes, let's say size 8, size 9, size 10, size 12, size 15. But this is in inch. Imagine people putting their shoe size in feet or in centimeter. You see that if you want to draw a graph of your highest request of shoe size, you see you're going to get it all wrong. So at transforming data, you want to convert your data in a very uniform format. Then of course, at this point of exploratory data analysis, this is where you now start doing things like frequency. You want to know how many people are interested in this, how many people are interested in that. You want to know the total number of male, the total number of female, all of those kind of frequency distribution. You want to get that. You might also want to get do things like charts. You want to do pie chart, you want to do bar chart, you want to do histogram. All of this will help you explore, understand, gain insight from that particular data. And of course, you now get to machine learning. For machine learning, you're trying to look at trend. You're trying to look at correlation. You're trying to look at relationship. In your data, is there a relationship between persons that want a particular service and their earnings? So if you see a class of persons, let me give you an instance. We have some programs for undergraduates. For the past 15 years, we've run the venture we are currently in now. We found out that some class of persons cannot afford some of our services based on data. What we now did was to set up a new website, a new program to cater for several projects for that class of persons. Because there's a relationship between your earning income and the kind of service that you can afford. So as a business, if you're drawing insight from data, you cannot say, oh, because somebody is in this category of maybe social category, they might not be able to afford a particular service. So the question is that you will still want to serve that category of persons, or do you just want to ignore that category of persons? And it will help you in your promotionals, it will help you in your service categorization, it will help you in your market segmentation, it will help you in your customer segmentation, right? Or your geographical segmentation, and also in your customer segmentation. That's where machine learning AI comes in. Of course, all of these things are going to help you make informed decisions. So this is like a crash course on what the process for doing data analytics is about. So let's get back to monitoring and evaluation. So understand, when we talk about data, here we're trying to look at this data, what are the different ways we can collect this data? So we can use surveys, questionnaires, we can do interviews, we can have focus group, just have people that are going to sit and discuss, right? We can just use observations, right? We can go even, I've had instances where you need to collect data from your competitors and you send your team members out to go and observe to see how things are done. Not everybody in your business that comes in actually needs your service. Some of them are just observing. Some of them are collecting data. And when they go back, they can do that particular service far better than you are doing it. You also, you need to do what? You need to learn from your competitors. And how do you do that? Watch, record events, behaviors in real time, and understand the processes, understand the activities. That will help you improve your service. Because at this point, you're trying to do what? You're trying to monitor, you're trying to evaluate. And we're saying, how do you do that? Then document review, then have some kind of case studies. Then when you collect this data, we're trying to say there are several ways you can do analysis. So there's a few of them here. You have quantitative analysis where you're trying to do a measure of central tendencies. So this is where you have mean, median, mode. That's what you call your measure of central tendencies. Then you have inferential statistics, where you're trying to see if there's a comparative relationship between two items. You're saying, is there a relationship between gender and spending habits? Is there a relationship, because you're trying to infer, is there a relationship between somebody's salary and the school the kids are going to attend? Take, for instance, if you are in the edutech or edtech, right? Regression. So your graph is going to look like something like this for a relationship. So it's going to look like this, it's going to look like this, or it's going to look like this, right? So if you have, let's say, age and let's say expense or spend, monthly spend, if it goes like this, that means for age 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, this is, let's say, 10,000 naira, 20,000 naira, 50,000 naira, 1 million. So there's a positive, so you say there's a positive relationship, because as the age is increasing, so also the expense. So you will say, if you're 19 age, you spend 10,000. If you are 20, maybe you spend, are you seeing? You spend this. If you are 21, you spend this. If you are 30, you spend it. So there's a positive relationship between, right, between your age as you're progressing and your expense, right? So all of this is under quantitative analysis. So for your business, you need to collect data. Even as simple as Excel, Excel can do you have, let's say, the time of the year and how much people spend in your business. You can get a trend analysis and tell when people spend more. So every business should gain some of this insight. And when you have something like this, it then means there's a negative relationship. So as this one is increasing, this one is, sorry, as this one is increasing, this one is reducing, right? So because if you see this data, this is like towards the highest point, and at this point, it is reducing here. So from top, why this is high, this is top. As this is coming down, this is also going down. So if you plot this graph, you see that those two parameters, there's a negative relationship. And of course, once you have a graph like this, that means there's no relationship between those two. So you cannot infer based on these two parameters. So those kind of analysis, you call them quantitative analysis. Qualitative is where it is not numerical, you just describe, right? You just say, okay, towards the end of the year, there's always a surge in purchase as a descriptive analysis. Then you have mixed method analysis where you combine both quantitative and qualitative. Of course, you can use statistical software to do some of these things. You can use SPSS. SPSS is a statistical package for social sciences. I think it's been acquired by IBM. Then you have Excel, it's owned by Microsoft. Then you have R programming. You can use a tool called R Studio to do your analysis. So you could use them for data cleaning, transformation, and run some statistical tests. Then you have some qualitative data analysis software like NVivo and Atlas. Those can also help you gain insights on your data. Okay, let's look at the next thing. So you can also look at visualizations, right? I'm going to drop tools you can use is like Excel, Tableau, Power BI, Excel. Some of these tools, you can use them to actually conduct some of your analysis when you've collected your data. I will drop some additional guide. Things like if you want to learn how to use a tool like Tableau, if you want to learn how to use a tool like Excel, you can do some of this. You can even use AI tools to like the data you've collected to like analyze them and also present them and also even explain what you have analyzed. Then you can look at descriptive. I've talked about regression analysis, then appropriate method selection. So you should always look at your objective, your goals, the kind of data that you have to be able to now tell what kind of analytic tool you should use. And I hope during the period of mentorship, if you have questions, you can ask additional questions and I'm going to clarify. So some of these things are slightly beyond the scope of what we might be doing within this very short period, but there's quite a lot of resources available if you need to improve your skill sets on this. Now, if you analyze your data and you cannot tell the story behind the data, then it's useless. It's of no importance if you analyze something and you cannot tell us the story. If you collected data about your customers' purchase or your employee data or your sales data, you should be able to tell us the story. And that's what we do in monitoring and evaluation. We monitor, we collect data, we evaluate, and we cannot make decisions, right? So data cleaning and preparation, you want to look at key performance index, you need to have some metrics, things like sales, right? Year on year, quarterly, monthly, weekly, daily. You want to know how much of these in terms of sales, for instance. So you need to have some indicators. So those indicators will tell what you are looking at for, what you are measuring. So, and every business, every entrepreneur is going to be measuring different things. Is going to be looking at key items differently. Some people, their key performance index is, if I have 1,000 reviews on Google or Facebook or Instagram, yeah, I'm doing well. Some persons, if they have 5,000 subscribers in their YouTube channel or Facebook channel or whatever, or likes, that's a very good metric. That's a good indicator. Now, if I have 50 sales monthly, right? So the item here is sales. So the metric I'm measuring is sales, subscriber, reviews. I can also be checking for team members. You know, if you grow your team members, what it means is that you can serve more customers. And what it means is that if you can sustain that for a longer time, that means you can pay more branches, outlets, more partners, and collaborations, right? Partnership. So all of these are indicators that you can look to measure. So every business you should look at things that brand awareness. So you should look at different things that matter most to you. Some businesses are going to look at sales, some are going to look at brand awareness, some are going to be looking at team cohesion, some are going to look at corporate culture. You can look at different things depending on what your goals are. Your present goal, your short term, your long term, your future, your 10-year plan, and all of that. Then you need to select appropriate tools, right? Then you need to conduct some kind of analysis and visualization. So when you write in your report, try to do some comparative analysis, try to compare things, try to do some summaries, try to incorporate graphs when you're doing your visualization, conceptualize, provide background, right? Information on your project. So if you're doing marginal evaluation for a particular project, you need to be contextual, put things in perspective, right? Have some kind of recommendation, right? And also involve stakeholders. Who is a stakeholder? In project management, we normally say a stakeholder is anybody that is going to be affected, that might have an impact or is going to be impacted upon, that can influence, typically that have a say, right? It can be a low, and stakeholders are going to have, they're going to be in different shape and form. So in terms of you're going to have some people that have a lot of power, right? And some people that can actually affect the project. Then you're going to have people that, in terms of influence, right? In terms of influencing the projects and power in the quadrants, they are here. There are some people that have a lot of power, right? And they don't have too much of influence on the project. So you can classify them to be here, right? You can classify them to be here. There are some people that have less power. They also have less influence, categorize them to be here. So for all your projects, you want to make sure that you look at your different stakeholders and look at how to involve them, because the success of your project is going to be dependent on how you carry along your stakeholders. And there are some projects that don't work because the stakeholders involved in the project are not carried out. Imagine somebody that wants to, you're processing some kind of software, you intend to create a new application, or you just want to improve on what you have currently for your business, and you want to collect payments online. If you need to collect payments online, for instance, you should know that you need a payment processor. So that's where Paystack, that's where Flutterwave, that's where PayPal, that's where all of these fintechs come in. Now, the kind of service you are rendering, if by regulation, these stakeholders cannot accept your product for people to pay via card, this your project is doomed. So you need to ask yourself that, in terms of collecting payments online, can these guys accept my kind of product? In terms of regulation, government regulation, will I be able to have license for this, my product? NAFDAC, CBN, what's the name again? Different agencies of government that monitor, regulate different kind of businesses, SMIDAN. All of these are stakeholders. Business is not just about you. Your project is not just about you, right? Your team members. So you have internal stakeholders also. So that's where you have your team. Some external also are your customers. Your customers are stakeholders. So do you just carry on your project, carry your business, and you feel that once you just bring it to market, everybody's going to buy it and everything is going to be fine? No, it doesn't work that way. You need to involve, you need to research, you need to ask yourself, hope I'm not going to have any issue with all of this. And you tidy up any loose ends so that you can have success. Okay, let's look at the next thing, which is designing a monetary system. So for you to design a monetary system, I've done some templates for you guys. I'm going to drop them so that you can understand better some of these concepts and some templates that might help you actually do monitoring and evaluation, because you need to design your own system based on your specific measurable indicators. It has to be aligned with your business or project objectives, right? You need to collect those data, and you need to have a way you want to structure collecting all of these data. So you define the indicators, you set the baselines. Baselines are like your standards, like your best benchmark. Then, of course, you have a plan. Okay, that's all for Unit 2. In Unit 3, we're going to look at, for entrepreneurs, what are some of the KPIs and what are some of the strategies if you need to succeed, and how monitoring and evaluation can help you achieve that.